That's right, it is. All right, I got some attendees. Welcome everybody to the Lunch and Learn. I'll be your host, Jared Rodriguez. And unfortunately, you'll be stuck with me tomorrow as well. So you got me today and me tomorrow. But don't worry, there is hope for you guys. On Thursday, you'll have Ashley Wilson. She is a very good decisions expert, and so she'll be definitely be helpful. So first thing I got before I open up the floor to any questions is I got a pre-submitted question from Joe. Hey, Joe. And what was asked was, I gotta pull it up. Hold on. Hold the phone. Hold the phone. Okay, there we go. Scheduled jobs don't run after Microsoft patch Tuesdays. Decisions in SQL DB are hosted on the virtual Hyper-V server. Hyper-V server reboots at 8:30 after patch installed. Scheduled jobs run at 11, manually running. A job wakes up the scheduler. So, couple of places I would check. Let's see. I'm going to actually open up my local. Feel free to come off mute. Oh, I can allow you to talk. Haha, I forgot. I'm going to allow you to talk, Joe, in case there's any other information you want to add. What I would do.
Hey, Jared.
Hey,
I have a cold, so I apologize for the sound of my voice.
No worries. All right, the things that I would check. I see you also have a support ticket with this issue, so I will let someone know to reach out to you because we may need to do more diagnosing on a call. But here's what I would advise for initial check, and you may have already done this, is on server restarts, I think the main thing to check is make sure that that the job server is set in decisions. Maybe in the restart, and I forgot where this setting was. Let me see if I can find a document over it. Is you want to make sure that the server is labeled as the job server, and then it should that should resolve that issue, I believe. So I would check there, make sure that there should be a right click. Hold on, let me. I'm gonna create a quick schedule. Actually, yeah, let me do this.
Yeah,
okay,
I'm a little confused by what you mean by that the job server has to be labeled as.
I will show you. I was trying to find a server that has a lot of scheduled jobs running, and I forgot my CRM system for all students does. All right, so let's go to jobs, scheduled jobs, and where is that job server? Enabled, and I'm assuming we've done this, right? We confirmed that scheduled job is not disabled, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, awesome. So we got that part. Where is the job? And you're self-hosted. Are you running decisions in a cluster? I couldn't find that information in your customer profile.
We are not. We're a single instance.
Okay, single instance. Okay, cool. Because that makes it a lot easier. So if I go to startup jobs, it's not the startup. So yeah, let me schedule job. Hold on. Checking out a ticket, not a ticket. A document here. Understanding schedule jobs. Sure. Yep, got that part. Assessing schedule jobs. Got that part. Type schedule jobs. Sure. Schedule flows. Sure. Job create our. Yep, that's all just the settings. But yeah, what I want to know. Job name. Sure. Notify on job delay. Add to logs. Do you know anything in the logs file? Like, does the logs indicate anything?
Yeah, so we've been sort of grasping at straws trying to figure out why this happens. And so I looked in the logs and I found that if I log into our production instance and then manually kick off one of the jobs that are not running,
yeah,
all the other jobs, which there's only 3 of them, kick off simultaneously at that exact same moment. So it seems like just going in there, logging in, and then running whatever job, one of the jobs that happens to be scheduled, wakes it up, and then it runs.
Interesting. And that's not the behavior, and right, there's nothing that's tying those scheduled jobs together, right? You're not like calling those other flows, so they should be separate, different flows running at different times, or they all run at the same time?
They actually run about 5 minutes apart. They kick off at 2300, 2305, and 2310. But if
Okay.
if they get stuck and I, go ahead and manually kick off one of them, then they all kick
Hmm.
off at whatever time I happen to do that. And I only noticed it because I was getting like multiple notifications, and I'm like, why am I getting multiple notifications? It's like, oh, because once I looked at the logs, I could see that they
Mhm.
were actually running all at a bunch.
Gotcha. Okay. I found the thing I'm going to show you this. So this is the thing about can be job server, and I'm wondering if maybe this got set with the Microsoft patch. So it is in the system folder. Oops, I didn't want to collapse that. It is in administration, and then it is in servers, and then this one says when you right click here, you should be able to say edit server, and then you can check this box, create job server. So that's kind of what we're looking for here. Is that making sure that this may have been reset? That's something to check.
That is set.
That is set. Okay, so we're good on that part. Okay, interesting. Okay, what I'm gonna do is I think this will have to be diagnosed on a call with a support
Okay.
technician. So I see you already have a support ticket in, so I'm gonna just put a message in the chat and see if I can get someone to reach out to you and schedule a call. Because what we'll have to do is I'm sure that those things are all those scheduled job flows are pretty critical, correct? Like those have to be run, and there's no time where we can
Exactly.
have
Right.
downtime. Okay.
Right.
So yeah, because I from what this issue sounds like, it sounds like there may need to be a potential like decision server restart, not the box itself, but the actual like service. So I know that will probably have to be coordinated with the support team. Um, so let me go ahead and I will send this message real quick. Da, 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 da. See, we are in the come on Slack channel. There we go.
Yeah. And then we're running 8.9 at this point.
Yep. Right. That's got. I think I had. Where is it? I was looking at support. Perfect. I was looking at your ticket. I'm just going to use that as a reference for the support team. Boom. Manually. Cool. I sent a message to them, so be on the lookout for a response for your support ticket. Because like I said, I think there will have to be some physical troubleshooting of the setup of the system, and then also a potential decision service restart.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Jared. I'm going to drop off the call. Thank you.
All right, sounds good. My pleasure.
All right. Bye-bye.
All right. Any other questions? Alex, Jeremy, John, Thomas? Let me look at the chat. Feel free to type them in the chat, or I have the power. So I can give you guys the ability to talk, and then you guys can explain. Nothing from me today? Okay. Gotcha. Long time no see, Alex. I know it's been a long time. I think last time I remember talking to you was like a year ago when you were going through training. So it's nice to see you again. Just lurking. Oh man, it's like a Twitch stream. We're just lurking. Gotcha. Okay, if you guys are just lurking, let me see. See what's something interesting that I could demonstrate just for a little bit, just so we can have maybe generate some questions from that. One of the things, I'll give you guys a sneak peek. We'll do this. Let me give you guys a little sneak peek. So one of the things that the training team is actually working on is we're going to be creating some new projects for the dev course. So obviously we'll have some type of marketing announcement that will come with this. But let me give you guys a little sneak peek into this. So we got come on, there we go. I'm going to demonstrate some of this. cool stuff of this project that I think was just pretty cool. And some of this you guys may have known, but I know it's a fun thing that I haven't really have interfaced with, but I haven't really used it in an applicable project, and this has just been a fun thing to work on it with. So the first thing that this project uses, so this is basically what I'm calling a financial asset tag of let's see. Oh, wait, Thomas has a question before I go into my long diatribe. Ooh, thought of one. Someone asked about connecting decisions to Power BI. I assume that can be done by API calls. Not super familiar with Power BI. Yes. So we can Google that. Let's see. Does Power BI have APIs, REST APIs? I think it should be like, yes, you can interact. Yeah, perfect. The reason why I looked that up is because decisions can interface with any application that is open APIs, then that allows REST integrations. So get calls, post calls, put calls, things like that. You can integrate with in decisions. So if it's open API, decisions can talk to it. In older versions of decisions, I want to say like version 6, we used to be able to this is not calling another service, but when you configure decisions, you used to be able to, I think it's like use WCF or SOAP services, and you can design flows to be called that way. But from the transition from version 6 to 7, where we went from the .NET framework to the .NET Core, we lost that ability. So now you can't run flows via by the SOAP methods. You have to use Open API, REST integrations, and calls like that. So, good question, Thomas. Alrighty. Okay, so I want to talk about this asset tagging main flow. So essentially, I created a project that we're going to be teaching our students. In the coming we got like a couple more weeks before we actually launch this and put it into the learning environment. But what essentially that it's supposed to teach is supposed to teach individuals 2 things. One, how to use rule sets, right? And this particular rule set, we're using a conditional rule set. And so as you can see here, right, we have different markets, right? So this asset tagging is by market. And in this project scope, it's a company that's based in West Virginia, a US territory. And that's where that company is based. But they have 3 markets. The 3 markets that they process in is the local market, which is West Virginia itself. Then there's a domestic market, right? So other territories or states inside the US, so like Maine and Georgia. And then we also have an international market, so like France and Japan. And we get different things and different items from that particular kind of financial instrument, for so to speak. And so what happens is I'm going to show you guys. I'm going to kind of debug the flow in the process. So what happens here is essentially there's this integration that actually calls those mock financial instruments, which is just like our register server that has some data. And what it does is it grabs all that raw data, and we'll see if this actually runs. It does struggle. Of course, it would struggle when I have to demonstrate. It struggles because the server that I'm building it on is a little overpacked, and so that's why sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But I just know that I can still show this part. So essentially what happens is we get this long list of kind of JSON data that's unformatted in a sense, where we have a lot of fields that we want to report on. So let me kind of show you this kind of diagram, because I think this will kind of give us some kind of color and a framework around what this project's supposed to do. So recent, and that's not what I'm looking for. Nope, go back. Nope, wait. And yep, there we go. Haha. I love it when it comes together. All right, so here's just kind of a really rough diagram of essentially what this project is. So we have, right, this is the data structure that we want to report on, or like not report on, but have data that's formatted in the way that we can understand to process rules in. The main thing of this project is to teach people, how do I take in data via a rule or via an integration or whatever structured unformatted JSON, and then transform that into decisions, and then apply rules that update it or change it as it goes throughout the rule process. So what we're going to do here is, as you can see, I don't have those extra fields that I want, right? I want this but I don't have this. So what do I do? Well, a lot of what I do is I will first create a data type, or I'll create a flow structure from those properties that I want here. So I'm going to create a flow structure called asset name, asset type, consumable, imported from market, quantity, weight, kilograms, money value, so on and so forth. And what this allows me to do is once I create that flow structure, so I'm going to go into my data types right here, is once I create that, is now I can utilize this asset flow structure that I created just to put it in a format that makes it easier to evaluate and run through rules with. So that's what I'm doing here. Now we have the actual financial asset raw data. This was based on the JSON that comes out of it. Edit define data structure. No, that's not where it is. Where is that one? The JSON right there, JSON, haha. Right, and that's just the JSON that comes from that instrument call, that financial instrument call. All right, so now what I do is in this main flow is first we need to convert this raw data into the list of asset flow structure. So what I do here, right, we take in the list of data and we convert it in the data that we want. Then after that, we run through a process that we should be very well familiar with. I mean, or maybe if you're not, then that's okay, because we'll talk about it, which is the run flow for list step. And within this run flow for list step, I've configured the conditional rule set to run. So we're going to talk about that flow that's inside of it. So this one's called asset tagging rule logic. And so what this does is it takes in the asset, right? And then it runs a truth table that determines the market that it's from. So when I edit this truth table, all it does is I have all of the list of assets coming from the different markets that I expect, right? So from West Virginia, it's in the US, it's just known for like coal, or one of the things it's known for is like coal and rocks and things and mining and stuff. So I have stuff that comes from there in this list. And then obviously some other assets from the other different territories. And then what I do is with this asset output, I actually say, hey, what we're going to do is we're going to change the asset market to local West Virginia. Or if it's valve trains and turbochargers, hey, well, we get those from our international Japan market. And so what this is doing is now it's filling in those properties of where that data is from. And so that's one of the ways that we're doing it here. So that gives it data. All this rule does is just a way to determine if the asset is weighted by kilograms or by quantity. And if it's weighted by that way, it will multiply, get the total count of those assets and multiply it by its weight and its quantity to get the financial sum of that asset. And then we run through a rule set. And so what this rule set does is it allows us to say, hey, I want to, let me go ahead and open the rule set within my environment. So you can actually see the rules that are running with it. And rules. All right, and so I have some rules for the local market that first, we're using a conditional rule set. What a conditional rule set does is, as you'll see over every single what do you call it? Conditional rule set, there is a rule for that rule set. So it's a little weird. So basically it's like a little gatekeeper in front of the castle that says, hey, are you from the local market? You're not? Okay, go talk to the other castle about if it's a domestic market. And that domestic guard says, oh, are you a domestic market? No, okay, go to the international guard, right? And so that's all this kind of set control rule set rule does, is just says, hey, is the market, so for example, this one says, hey, does the market contain West Virginia or equal West Virginia? And if it does, then it will run all of the rules in the local market. And in this case, there's only one rule to determine if it's a low equity asset or a high equity asset. So that's all it determines here. And then we have one for the domestic market. But then in the domestic market, we have a sub-market of like, hey, is this a Georgia market? Is it a Maine market, right? And then there's different rules that will run based on that particular market. So it's kind of filtering down even farther to evaluate what this asset is. And so I'm going to open up this rule so we can see that truth table. So all that happens here is it basically says, hey, If the asset name equals lobster, trout, salmon, or Arctic char, then what we're going to do is we're actually going to not only output some default data, this is just kind of a Boolean value, but the main meat and potatoes you want to look at is that here I can then tell it to change the data that's passed through. So I can say, hey, this asset came from Maine and it's lobster. Okay, cool. Then make the asset tag to, lobster main asset or LMA. Give it some information, and the more rules it goes through, it will add the rule tagging to it. So that's why it's called financial asset tagging. We're basically tagging the assets and giving it a name, and sorting it based on what it is, and that's what this rule set does. So pretty cool stuff. But then at the end, so it goes through all those tags. It does the same thing for the international market for France and Japan or whatever. And then what I have here is I also have a dashboard that runs all the rules to say, hey, what ran? So here I have a report that's coming from the rule audit history that allows me to determine, hey, what are the classifications of the financial assets? How many are domestic that ran? So I have these assets that ran in the domestic Georgia one, and it's from the market domestic. And I can see the rule data, and I can also see the plain text of that rule and how it ran. So it allows me to audit to say, hey, is this tag operating the way I want it to? And then you notice I have some unknown ones. Well, now I can look at them and see, okay, why they evaluated false, and if maybe there's a part of my process I need to add into it so that it captures this new asset. So this just gives me information of how my rules ran and making sure that my data is being processed the way I want it to. So this is another really cool feature of rule sets, of just rules in general, where you can use the audit history table that we don't teach too much in the current dev program. So that's why I wanted to add it and create actually a project that's specifically just rules, because there's a lot of customers that just want to know, how do I build in rules? The last thing that happens in this project, before I open the floor to any questions, is in this business context, this business that's based out in West Virginia takes in data from an unstructured JSON, but then they're using some legacy system that only allows them to store data in an XML format. So they have to take this JSON and convert it into XML after they're done evaluating it. And so what I've done here is it's just utilizing the XML serialize to say, hey, take this rule result list that is another flow structure that I've created, and I want you to serialize all of this data into an XML. And then that can then be stored later on or can be housed somewhere else. And so all this process does is just takes in data, doesn't save anything, evaluates data, and then outputs in a format that can be stored for later, and it sends that output. So that's all it does. And so this project is to teach rule sets, conditional rule sets, rule phrase auditing and rule auditing, and then JSON to XML conversion and decision. So some really cool features that I think would be beneficial for students, or even people who are more seasoned developers that want just a different way to think about designing and creating things and decisions. All right, comments or questions, whether about this project or even about something that you are trying to build or work through. Awesome. Glad you guys like it. Sweet. Cool, cool. Awesome, awesome. All right, Thomas, is a rule set more performant than many separate rules or just cleaner design-wise? Let's let's talk about that. So the reason why we have rule sets, and maybe let's see if I can I could just run the Sprint 3 project to demonstrate this. So a way to think about it, it's not really about performance per se, but the reason why you want to use a rule set over some just like chaining rules together is whenever you run a rule set, it will output what we call like rule result data. So for example, let me go into that flow. So let's go to the rule asset. Oh, I already have it open. There we go. So what you'll notice is that this step outputs a list of flow rule result data. You can have it output a data return variable. You can have it output, a scoring. You can have it output just a list of Boolean results. But the reason why this is helpful is because when you look at this data type, right? Flow, you can ignore the bool, it just indicates what data type it is. The flow set run result, and you'll see that you have all of these options. You can see what the exception details are. You can look at the execution time. You can look at what the rule result data is. You can look at the rule types. You can look at all this metric information about the rule and why it ran. So a lot of people like it for 3 reasons, right? You have common inputs and outputs that you want to pass through into decisions. The second reason why you want it is because you can be able to track which rule ran and why, and it gives you that kind of detailed insight. And second, it's also more scalable because if you want to add a new rule to that rule set, or if you want to just add a new market, right? All I have to do is just copy the Georgia market if I have similar rules, and then change some of the rules there, and that's it. I don't have to do. It's a one place to edit and create the rules. So that's why it's better to use a rule set, not necessarily performant, but it's just easier to maintain your rules. Just in case Arctic char has 1R, not char, in case some rule fails because of that, and then separate and let you leave the maintenance of each rule to a different group. Yeah, no, I could definitely do that and say, hey, I want someone to look at these unknown, like going back to my dashboard, like, hey, I want you to look at these unknown assets. I want to see if like, hey, did the rule run it correctly, and this is and these are unknown random things that we need to clean up from, or is it something that no, we want to add it back into our financial assets and then send it through to the XML stuff. So that's something that can be added to it. Yep, and just like you said, Alex, right? I could send it to another group, assign it a task, have them review it, and do what they need to do. My pleasure, Alex. Yeah, thanks for stopping by. It's great seeing you again. Hopefully next Decisions Days or Submersive event, hopefully you can come by because I'd love to meet you in person. All right. Any other comments or questions? Perfect. Sounds good, Alex. All righty. All right. So it looks like I don't see any more questions. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to call the meeting at 12:30. Thank you so much for attending. Tomorrow, if you want to see me again, let me put I'm going to close all this stuff. I'll be also running tomorrow, so you'll get one more day of me. Or if you want someone different, you can come on Thursday, and that's Ashley Wilson from the sales engineering team. So it's great talking with you guys. Hope you guys have a great day, and I'll see you tomorrow.
Thanks, Jared.